The global fintech markets reached a value of nearly $674.5 million dollars in 2022, having increased at a compound annual growth rate at 11.1% since 2017. The pace at which globalization is moving cannot be overemphasized. Hello and welcome to Islamic Finance Weekly. I am Rahma Say Muhammad. Our focus for the month of February is fintech and its imperative. And joining us virtually today is Mr. Sharif Bakari, the founder and chief executive officer of Yalla.Nigeria. He'll be taking us down an introduction of Islamic fintech and insights and challenges in the space. Hello, Mr. Bakari. Welcome on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rahma, for having me. It's been a long time coming. Thank you so much, and great work you've been doing on the Islamic finance space. I'm one of a fan of what you're doing. Well done.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bakari. Thank you for doing this. And okay, let's dive right into it. Okay, Islamic fintech. Islamic finance, as the term implies, has to do with non-interest. So now people are conversant with the term fintech, but then Islamic fintech. What does Islamic fintech mean? And let's just have an overview of what Islamic fintech is, especially in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. I think, like, we all know of financial is, we know most financial fintech is financial technology, right? So what differentiates Islamic fintech and regular fintech is you use Islamic principle to be able to transact. We all know that Islam is a way of life, the way we eat, the way we transact, the way we do everything in our lives. So Islamic fintech is a financial technology based on the Islamic principle. Basically, that's what an Islamic fintech is. Say, and there's so many like principles, rules governing how you operate that. It is not a rule that is just based off on some certain set of people and saying, oh, this is how we want to do it. It is based off on the text, the Quran, the Sunnah, and all of the activities and transactions that happened in thousands of years ago, and practices that they've been able to do to make sure that they grow the economy better. So that's pretty much what Islamic fintech is about.
Right. Thank you. Okay, now talking about these principles and the Sharia guiding the Islamic fintech, let's talk about the similarities and parallels between conventional fintech and Islamic fintech. There has to be a meeting point. There has to be similarities and then differences where they differ. Like, for example, fintech is generally fintech. We know fintech is something that has to do with digital transactions, but then Islamic now comes in the picture. And so let's have those differences and similarities.
I think the similarities are mostly financial technology are like enablers of like digital, like it's a lot digital more than the traditional way bankings are being done. So, traditional banks are banks everywhere you look at them. But at the end of the day, for fintechs generally, they go like beyond the regular way traditional bank kind of operate, using technology tools, onboarding users quite easily, and penetrating into the market faster than what a traditional banks would do, because fintechs, as you know, a lot of them don't have like a lot of physical stores and physical banks all over the country the same way the traditional ones do. So I think in those lines there are similarities, whether it's Islamic fintech or regular fintech. You're there to solve customers' pain, that you are creating a lot more easier than the traditional one. And a lot of times, even fintechs leverage on traditional banks infrastructures. So it's not like, oh, they are on and oh yeah, they're separately doing something different, honestly. Right. I think it's just that we're leveraging on the traditional and we're adding more tools. Banks have like a lot of things they are concentrating on. So fintechs just pick maybe one side of it and then expand it, understanding customers' pain point, and then expand that solution into like a broader term. So I'll take, for instance, savings, for instance. A bank would just regularly do savings for you. With fintech, we try to say you can do targeted savings, you can do monthly savings, you can do this, you can automate your savings, you can send savings as a gift. There's so many like ideas that when you think about it, Islamic fintech or general fintech are enablers. They give more access to technology, they make things easy, and they give customers more satisfaction in terms of the user experience, user flow, and all of that. So that's really the similarities. But the difference, like we said, the regular fintechs usually are interest based. So for them, it's a capitalist economy. It's really not about growing the economy per se, or it doesn't even put in consideration um, some certain element that Islamic fintech does. So I'll give you an example. Islamic fintech is really based on growth. When I mean growth, I'm saying interest based businesses. I give you money. I don't really care about what you do with that money. An Islamic system is saying, I really want to know what you want to do with that money. I really want to share risk with you on that money. And I want us to have a mutual benefit. When you're down, I want us to go down together. When you're up, I want us to succeed to get together. So yes, while technologies are the same, or tools that you can use are the same, the principle guiding what you're actually doing are clear difference. So that's pretty much the difference between the regular and
Yeah, I like that you said the fintech gives convenience to people. I mean, queuing up in a bank or in front of an ATM and you're trying to withdraw money or transactions, and then the fintech takes away all that hassle away from you, and I mean, it's a go-to all the time. So, moving on, I remember we were talking earlier, and you were talking about how Yella Nigeria had to shut down, and you're planning to relaunch, or you're relaunching this year. So, let's talk about challenges and obstacles of Islamic fintech, especially in a multicultural society like Nigeria. Let's talk about what are those challenges people, business owners, and startups face. In this space, in the fintech space.
Thank you very much. I have a first-hand information as I have launched an Islamic fintech product. I think the first thing, circling back to what are the things that didn't work, and would be customers awareness first. I think a lot of people, Muslims inclusive, they aren't aware about what an Islamic fintech is about. I think one of the biggest problem, and like I said again, looking back at what has happened, was uh, we were focusing too much on the form and not the substance. Our first go-to was like, we are interest based. We're not interest based. So
All right.
like bank with us or use us away from the conventional guys. But that in itself is not enough to to convince any user. So whether you're doing an Islamic fintech or a regular fintech, one thing that is clear, I mean, from our experience, is you have to be. It's either you're competing at that par, or you're even doing something better. Because at the end of the day, for Islam, whether it's Islamic fintech or regular fintech, where you make your money is your AUM, asset under management. So if you don't have a lot of asset under management, how do you want to invest the user's funds, and how do you want to get profit? So the point is, interest-based system could do different things, So they could easily just tell you, I'm going to give you 21% interest, and that's it.
Right.
And eventually you can just go with that. But for us, we have to critically look at where we're putting that money, how much return, what are they using that money for? And sometimes those businesses don't produce that amount of like profit in a short span, So we were struggling with, how much revenue are we paying? Because we are a fintech, like I said, you're leveraging on existing traditional banks or
Right.
existing traditional financial institution. So if the first financial institution that you are giving money is giving you a 5% per annum, how much do you want to give your users? How much do you want to run like your running cost? We just realized that it was a problem from top to bottom. Like there were a
Right.
lot of like multiple layers of problems why we
Mm-hmm.
couldn't just succeed on that. So I mean, it was just a time ticking, and we just felt like it's better we just shut down and re-strategize than to just continue the product that way.
Right. So yeah, Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa by GDP. I mean, with over 214 million people, more than half of whom are Muslims in the country alone. Even though Islamic finance or non-interest finance is not meant for just Muslims, there's this balance, trying to seek for balance between the Muslims and non-Muslims. Look, non-interest finance or Islamic finance is not just for the Muslim populace, but rather the whole of the people. So I was wondering, what's the global view of Islamic fintech, and what's the acceptability ratio? How are people, embracing this system of fintech, and what's the ratio?
I think in the rest of the world, most especially in the MENA regions and the OIC region, they are accepting it a whole well, So you see Malaysia in there, you see Indonesia in there, and because they have started a bit ahead of us, and
Right.
they that education is there, it's in their lifestyle. There isn't an issue of Islamophobia. Like that's exactly how they were being
Mhm.
wired. But for a
Right.
country like Nigeria that it's 50-50, there's
Mhm.
always that fear of, okay, are these people going to Islamize the country? And when they hear
Right.
Islamic finance, even that already had put them off before they even start learning to
Right.
know what's even what it's about. So that's why you
Mhm.
see, I mean, I remember back in the days, I always feel um like our traditional banks or our fund managers aren't strong enough, that they always say alternative, ethical, and all that. But in reality, you realize that at the end of the day, in a multi-ethnicity country like ours, you want to also go that route, to be able to,
Right.
I mean, just slowly let them get into it. Like, for instance, in
Mhm.
Turkey, where there's even a large amount of Muslims, they call it participating finance. They don't even call it Islamic finance. So
Right.
depending on your country and you how the people are, how the consumers are, you really need to
Mhm.
tailor your solution to solve problem. It really doesn't matter what we label it as, whether it's Islamic, whether
Mhm.
it's alternative, and all of
Right.
that. So recently
Mhm.
for me, I had like when on my LinkedIn before, you always say like, oh, Islamic, you see Islamic, you see ethical. But these days I don't even use those labels anymore. But
Mhm.
deep within our organization, we know that we are principled, we're ethical, we're Islamic,
Mhm.
and we want to focus on the core, the value that we want to give to the society, not
Right.
actually just the name and the label.
Okay, moving on. I was reading an article or a news story that Yalla Nigeria featured on, and you said the vision is huge and the drive is high. So I was wondering, what's you said this in full courage and confidence. So what's the prospect for the expansion or growth of Islamic fintech in Nigeria? I mean, having your personal experience and challenges into cognizance, like you have firsthand experience in this field and all of that.
I think in the economy today and what has been happening in the country, I feel like not just even in Nigeria and the rest of the world, I feel like Islamic fintech, Islamic finance is a solution to a lot of this. But how we approach it is what I think needs to change. And I think that's the approach I'm also taking now. So rather than it being, oh, I'm building a product and I'm like, oh, it's Islamic product for XYZ, I would focus on what the problems I wanted to solve and how Islamic fintech can tackle that, and then use those principles. And I don't necessarily have to call it an Islamic fintech. But underneath the
Right.
organization, this is what we're going to be doing. So in terms of housing, in terms of access to credit, in terms of
Right.
owning a car, and I think some traditional bank like Bank and the likes are coming up with products to do that. But then they now need an Islamic fintech companies to be able to now accelerate that because traditional banks, they have those ideas, but in terms of accessibility, getting to the retail market and also making onboarding easy, it's always a difficult thing. There's always a serious gap between what they want to do and how they want to get there. So that's where we come in between to be able to say we all have to collaborate to penetrate into this market.
Like Mr. Bakari said, it's really not about how you call it, either Islamic fintech or non-interest fintech or alternative fintech or participative fintech. It's really about the substance. How is it going to be beneficial to you and how is it going to help the country and even globally? Well, with that, I say don't forget to keep it to date with us next week on the program. Follow us on all our social media platforms displayed on screen. Thank you for watching. I am Rahma Say Muhammad.